Episode 3 of Secret Garden is called The Lake District, and it is set in the Lake District. So if you're from the UK, you probably know that the Lake District is one of the most famously, naturally beautiful places in England. If you're not, well, you know that now. This episode basically, as I'd kind of suspected, follows a countryside garden in the Lake District. And this was probably one of the ones that looked like it was going to be one of the better ones, I think. The Lake District's pretty famous for being, a pretty picturesque place. And this episode opens up with field mice. So the field mouse is one of the main characters we follow. Arguably the main character. It's basically this female mouse that's going out looking for a mate. She finds one, she mates, and she's got to then, look after her brood. And then when they're adults, then she's got to do the same again. It's basically the same thing a couple of times with this field mouse, but ultimately it's fine. I mean, you don't see mice that often. And it was interesting watching her evade predators. There's obviously kestrels, stuff like that. The kestrel kind of comes and goes in this episode. It's one of the baddies. There's no real clear villain in this episode, not like the first two. That aspect of the narrative's definitely lacking. And you see that as the season goes on, all her young pretty much get predated. They did actually touch on that. I was kind of expecting them not to. Ultimately, she just then gets ready to, have another brood. The phrase Attenborough uses is that she floods the garden with offspring. And that will stay with me, I think. The field mice story was good. I liked it. It was probably one of the stronger ones of the episode. The swallows as well get a lot of time. There's this drama when the male swallow gets back to the nest and his mate doesn't arrive. It's like, oh, is she there? Is she not? Eventually, she just sort of turns up. It's clear that they missed the point where she returned because she was just there and they had a brood of chicks. She were like, oh, okay. Well, I guess she's there now. They do touch on how difficult it is, especially with things like the rain. The rain's not great because there aren't that many insects about, so they can't forage as effectively as they would normally. The swallows are fine. The newts also got a bit of screen time. Palmate newts. Palmate newts I don't think get a lot of screen time. Newts in general don't, to be fair. So I think it was quite good that we got a good chunk of them here. It was them just crawling around, going to the pond, mating. The newts when they emerge are quite good as well. You see them in the garden, them eating slugs and stuff like that. I thought that was good. The thing about that stood out the most to me was the stuff with the pheasants, because so many pheasants get released into the UK every year, in other parts of the world as well. They do eat quite a lot of native animals, especially native amphibians and reptiles, so I think it was good that they highlighted that, and I think the pheasants were handled pretty well. They looked kind of intimidating, and that is quite impressive, because pheasants aren't really an animal that are intimidating at all. Like, you kind of see them in the countryside and you're like, you're probably going to get hit by a car at some point. And so that was quite cool. The best part of the episode for me, by far, I think, was actually the mole. I really liked the mole. It's only a brief sequence. We don't follow the mole throughout the episode. We're just watching the mole doing what it was going to do, because, again, you don't see moles very often in these series. I can't think of another series which showed European moles in this level of detail, I don't think. Just the mole digging through the earth, eating worms, and then having to actually surface to look for a mate. That was quite good. I will say a lot of the stories in this episode revolve around mating, and I guess every story in this series does, to be fair, but I've noticed it more here. It definitely felt like every story was like, okay, rinse and repeat almost. But the moles mating was great, and it was actually funny watching them interacting, because moles don't generally like interacting with each other. There was a pretty aggressive interaction between the male and the female. So I really liked that. I thought it was really cool. Again, moles, you don't see them very often, so I really liked that. Minor sequences are the jumper spider, and the grain house, it looked like. Watching it hunt the other insects was really cool. Again, jumping spiders are pretty easy to watch, I think. It was cool seeing one in the UK, because you don't tend to think of them as being here, even though they very much are. And there was other things where, like, the butterflies, a lot of good shots of them. I will say this episode is my least favourite of the series so far, and that's a little bit disappointing, because the Lake District is so famously picturesque. I would say I just wasn't as attached to as many of the storylines. Like, the mouse was good. The swallows, I was kind of like, okay. We do end with the swallows. The swallows, managed to raise their chicks to fledgling. And it's good. It's a good way of ending the things. I would say that I did fully believe that every chick would survive. I didn't think we were going to get the same we got with the blue tits last time. So there's an element of, yeah, of course the baby animal's going to be alive. Like, yet another case of that. That was fine. So yeah, overall, this episode is good. It's definitely a good episode. But it's definitely the weakest one for me so far. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this episode. What do you think of this video? Let me know. Do the next one next week, so look forward to that. And as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Or don't if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time, and goodbye.